So, Sue, here we are again, the two wise birds. It's Thursday, the 28th of May. Can you believe that here we are, 3 months
Yeah.
on?
What are we, more than 60 days into lockdown now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what do you think the profession needs to hear from us today?
I think they need some support. I think it's a really tricky time at the moment. We're still in that uncertainty period. There's still a lot of frustration. We keep waiting for information telling us what we can do, when we can do it, how we can do it. And it's coming out in little drips. And then when it does come, it's not as complete as we wanted it to be. So I think some reassurance and support for the profession just now would be really helpful.
Okay, and when you say reassurance and support, what can we offer?
I think it's helping people to think things through. There's so many people around at the moment looking to say, well, I should be looking to see what everyone else is doing because I need to do what the chap down the road's doing, what the fella over there's doing, what the lady over there's doing. What people decide has got to be personal to them, and it takes into account what their beliefs are, what their values are, what their circumstances are with their families as well. It's not going to be the same for everybody else. So we need to help people through that, I think.
Okay, I think you're so right. I'm seeing so much evidence of some practices have already started. Some practices are planning to start on Monday. We've got some people that are feeling pressurised into going back and feeling unsafe. And they haven't got their head around what's right for them. So this thinking and planning, I think, is really key.
Well, that's right. And I don't think when you're looking at a team that you can understand they're all going to be the same as they were before the lockdown. People have changed. People have rethought what they want to do with their lives and their work-life balance. And people's appetite for risk has changed.
Yeah.
Some have become more risk-averse, some have become more gung-ho. And until you talk to people, you don't know.
No. And I think talking, we talk about communication, and people often think communication is talking at the team. But from where I am as a business coach, communication is about listening. That Stephen Covey expression, seek first to understand and then be understood. And what I would love to see so much more of is principals metaphorically sitting down with their team, whether it's Zoom, Skype, whatever, and just actually asking the team members, where are they? Where's their level of risk? How do they feel? And then really unpicking what is going to be in our stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. What's right for our practice, our team, our patients? What are our definitions? What's an AGP in our practice? And what does that mean in the treatments that we do? How do we know? How are we going to decide whether we move from stage 1 to stage 2 rather than just choosing an arbitrary date? How do we work together? What's right for our patients? And this is about understanding.
I think you're absolutely spot on. And as dentists, we've always been driven by what's right for our patients, and that's entirely right. And we've also got to factor into that now what's right for us and our teams as well. And the answer to that isn't going to be the same for everybody as well. So we've got to have that new way of thinking. We've got to become comfortable with that. And in this downtime, we've got chance to think about that as well. Because as you rightly say, until we discuss these things with our teams, we don't know where we are.
Absolutely.
And everybody's opinion is going to feed in on that as well.
Absolutely. And I think what's really, really important is that we do think, and think laterally, because we're used to going back to evidence-based dentistry. Yeah. And yet we have less evidence these days. This is stuff which is so new that we don't have certainty. So sometimes we're going to have to go back to first principles and ask ourselves, what are the principles behind gold standard cross-infection control? If we are going to have to assume that every patient is infected because we can't differentiate whether they are or they're not, given that this is an airborne droplet infection, what is our gold standard? And we can take those principles that we use every single day for treating our patients, assuming, as we do, that everybody has an infection of a blood-borne virus. How do we tweak those principles for an airborne virus?
And I think that makes a very good point. Because this is so new, there simply isn't any evidence that's going to be helpful to us at the moment here. There's no instant testing or anything like that. There's no reliability of that. One thing that we are fabulous at, and we've said this before as dentists and teams, we are absolutely fabulous at infection control.
Absolutely.
And at working at it ourselves. We don't just hand our instruments and they go out to a central sterilisation department. We do it ourselves, and we know what works and what doesn't work. But there's another factor to this as well, and that's the reassurance of patients.
Yep.
Because while our appetite for risk has changed, that's going to be the case with patients as well. So you're going to have some very risk-averse patients, and again, you're going to have some very gung-ho patients who can't understand why we're not open at the moment and doing aerosol-generating procedures.
Absolutely. And we've said this in...
this, Jane,
Pardon?
I think sitting behind this, everybody needs to be prepared to justify what they're doing and have it documented somewhere. From my background in the dental-legal world, saying, did I catch something at that dental practice? We've got to be ready and robust to demonstrate our procedures and have evidence behind them so we can defend ourselves there.
Absolutely. And I think this is going to fall into our own risk assessments, being able to demonstrate that we have done a risk assessment on everything. It is going to be demonstrating that we have really thought about our scope of practice for our practice. One of the things that I keep going on about is rehearsal and revision. And in the same ways that actors and actresses would not do an opening night until they are word perfect and position perfect on the stage, we cannot afford to go live without rehearsing. So we're slick. And how are we not only recording this day by day as things change, but how are we also recording this in the notes, keeping a track of not only who our nurses are, but what is every nurse wearing?
Yeah.
Are we using air filtrations? Are we using misting? What have we got in our tubes? Everything, so that should anything, God forbid, go wrong, that we just hand it over and everybody can see that, do you know what? No, that infection didn't come from you because you've been practicing at gold standard and above.
And you're right. And sometimes it's not even something's gone wrong. It's just simply someone's perception that something's gone wrong. And if a practice does as you described, they're much more robust, aren't they? And you're right, it's not just having a note of what you've done within the practice, it's within each patient's records as well. What operating procedure did you have in place at that time? And as you say, specifically what PPE? So you can track it back, because by the time you're challenged, it could be 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, even years down the line.
Absolutely.
So let's get everyone doing that now. Absolutely. And getting ready to work it out.
And I know we have said this previously, and I know that some clients or people have been listening to these videos and have taken it on board, but I strongly suggest for those that haven't, is using videos. Educational videos that we can put out on our YouTube, our Instagram, our LinkedIn, on our websites, just letting patients know this is what to expect.
Yeah.
We don't know for certain, but this is a possibility. So, we don't know. what's actually going to be true, but we do know that there are some possibilities.
Yeah. And it's about managing patient expectations so there aren't any surprises, there aren't any disappointments for them. Because we know otherwise these are the things that lead to problems.
Yeah.
So with an idea that stuff isn't going to be the same in dentistry when we go back, everyone's hedging their bets and saying, look, there's going to be more PPE, there's going to be fewer appointments. So you're right. If we manage patients' expectations like that now, that's fine, because if that happens, they'll say the practice told us about it. If it doesn't happen, they'll say, hey, it was even better than we thought it was going to be when we went to the dentist.
Absolutely.
None of that other stuff actually happened.
Absolutely.
You can't lose.
And I think the expectations as well that we need to be building in is about levels of investment.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, somebody's got to pay for this PPE.
Yeah. And that's my concern at the moment, is because whilst that can probably be passed on to patients in private practice,
and should be.
Yeah, absolutely, because we can't expect practice to absorb that cost. What's going to happen in NHS practices? You can't add on any extra fees. We know the NHS regulations say that. So how's it going to work? NHS practices aren't very well funded at the best of times, as you and I both know. They're really subsidised by whatever private work that you do. Practices can't subsidise that, and this really concerns me when practices are planning to go back to work, that there isn't any evidence support at the moment. What's we going to do about that as a profession?
That is a big unknown.
Isn't it just? We're going to have to wait and see what happens with that. But yeah, priming patients so they know that this stuff doesn't just come to us, because when you listen to some of the government briefings, it sounds like it's provided free of charge. That's not for dental practices. You know, so we need to be getting patients on side here, getting their support. So just drip feeding this information in. I love your idea of videos of walkthroughs of the practice. This is our cross-infection control. And I think further again, this path and just how we have to use it, you know, for everyone's safety. And the more we get patients on side, the more supportive they are when these changes are occurring, and that's really important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, I think that you've heard me talk about making treatments fab before, features, advantages, benefits. And I think that this communication, this fab treatments, is not just about for our treatment plans, but we can make everything about the patient journey fab. So if we've got a automatic hand gel dispenser that's outside the door before the patient even knocks on the door, yes, we've got this. What's the feature of this? What's the advantage? Which means that.
Yeah.
So every single step of the way where we're showing people that these are the links in the chain for our cross-infection control to keep you, your family safe and healthy, we've got to be really upfront and saying, this is what's happening and this is why. This is what's happening and this is why.
I think that's absolutely right. And I think sometimes we assume that patients understand what the benefits of things are. And I don't think they always do, and spelling it out, I think, is really helpful. And you'll hear that go around the village next. Hey, it's great at that practice. You'll never guess what they've got there. And the reason they've got it is this. And then patients become a really good advocate for you as well. You can't lose, can you, with doing that?
No. But we've just got to make the time. I know we've got supposedly got lots of time, but it's actually structuring the time, that sitting down as the practice, making time to think, come up with our own solutions rather than being expected to be spoon-fed and getting the answers on yet another WhatsApp group. Because what somebody else has created for their practice may not be right for your practice. That one size fits all seldom fits anybody.
Do you know, that's so right, actually. So what we're saying to people really is spend your time thinking about this now. Do your planning, get your messaging, and then get your messaging out there. And if you need any help with any of that, we're happy to help.
Absolutely. And I think it's also okay to say, at the moment, we don't know.
Yeah.
But not knowing and doing nothing isn't an option. not knowing and planning option A, B, C and thinking about it absolutely is. So who knows what might be happening by the time we speak again next week. Maybe we'll be back, maybe we won't be. Maybe we'll have some clearer guidance, maybe we won't. But one thing for certain, we'll be here having another conversation, and we're always here to help anybody. So enjoy the sunshine, and we'll speak again soon.
See you next week.
Bye.